Hello, second graders. What do you notice? This story is called Abuela's Weave. Abuela is a Spanish word for grandmother. So this story takes place in Guatemala, which is a country in Central America. The girl, named Esperanza, and her abuela are planning to sell some special things that they have made by weaving, but they're worried that no one will buy them when they go to the market. Let's see and find out what happens. Pull back hard, old Abuela said. Make it jolt so the threads stay close, like family. Yes, Abuela. Esperanza thrust the bolt through the open weave and pulled the bar down with all her might. Next to her, Esperanza's grandmother, her abuela, also kneeled in front of a backstrap loom. Both looms were tied to the same tree in the middle of the family compound. Esperanza's mother fed the chickens and pigs behind the main thatch hut while her father was off with her brothers in the field of corns, beans, and coffee. You're learning, Abuela said. Esperanza looked at her grandmother out of the corner of her eye. She knew that Abuela was nervous about the market. Her mother said that hupils and tapestries Abuela made could pull the wonder right out of people. But these days, more and more goods were made by machines. Esperanza worried that people would tease Abuela about her birthmark, as some kids had once done. They started a rumor that she was a witch, and now many people were frightened to buy things from her. So what do you think that her mother means by it would pull the wonder right out of people? Daydreaming again? Abuela asked. Yes, Abuela. Well, the old woman said gruffly, get busy because there are too few days left. You still have a lot of work to do, and there will be many other people selling the same things you have. Don't worry, Abuela. I'll be busy until we leave. And she was. Esperanza and her grandmother worked from early morning, even before the sun rose, to well past sunset when the moon rose and the compound fire gave everything a rich smell of pine. They showed no one their work, not even Esperanza's mother, because it was a special thing that they wove. They wanted to wait for the Fiesta de Pueblos in Guate to reveal it. Soon the day arrived, bright with sun, the leaves glistening from the previous night's rain. It seemed like a good omen for Esperanza and her grandmother. Abuela appeared disguised as a woman in mourning. That just means after someone has died, people wear all black to show that they are upset and in mourning. So she's using it as a disguise, though. Dressed in black, she wrapped a long black shawl around her shoulders and across her face so that only her eyes appeared to the world. Esperanza, however, wore her favorite hupil. It was a white blouse with red, blue, and green threads in a rectangular collar. Under that, the colors bled into silver and blue, and hidden within the intricate designs of the blouse were tiny quetzals flying freely in the threads the way they once flew in the great forests of Guatemala. So why do you think Abuela is dressed like this? She carried on her head a large basket full of her clothes, tablecloths, skirts, and the special tapestry. Esperanza walked steadily down the dirt avenue of Santa Cruz to get to the highway where the Guate bus would pick them up. Abuela walked several paces behind. She insisted they pretend that they did not know each other. This way, if my birthmark frightens customers, they will still buy from you, Abuela explained. When the bus came, Abuela did not even help lift the heavy basket to the boys who strapped bags onto the roof of the bus. Inside they sat 3 seats apart as if they were strangers, people living in different villages, people with no ancestors in common. How do you think Esperanza is feeling about this? When they arrived, the noise in the city was deafening. Large buses roared down the narrow streets, emitting clouds of black fumes. Horns blasted and people hurried roughly down the sidewalks. Esperanza wanted more than anything to get off the Sexta Avenida, where people jammed the walkways and hawkers yelled from their shops or from hundreds of carts, blocking the sidewalks and streets. She felt trapped. Her lungs ached from the automobile and bus fumes, and her ears rang with sounds of screeching brakes, horns, shouting, and the whistles of policemen. Esperanza walked quickly, the basket steady upon her head, her mind trying to focus away from the commotion and onto the stalls set up for the fiesta in the Parque Central. Do you see Esperanza and Abuela in this picture? Do you think Abuela should help Esperanza? Why? Or why not? She walked furiously, zigzagging to get down to Avenida Ocho or the Septima Avenida, where the noise was less. She suddenly stopped to see if Abuela was still following behind. She looked for a familiar face among the bobbing heads, the baskets, the helmets, and hats. She wanted to just catch a sight of her grandmother, her shawl like a blackbird hopping from branch to branch in a forest of people. But she could not find her. Esperanza continued to the market, hoping Abuela would eventually find her there among the other merchants. The stalls were already filled when Esperanza arrived. Old men and women nearby shooed her away or ignored her when she asked for help. Wonder why they may have done that. At last, all she could do was set her basket between the narrow slats of 2 stalls. On one side, a family from Antigua sold pottery reproductions of Mayan crafts, and clothing loomed in one of the many factories. The woman on the other side sold long bolts of cloth, musical instruments, and decorative bags. The bags all had zippers machined in the capital and long handles of colorful plastic. Everything was so beautiful, Esperanza thought. She thought that nobody would buy anything from her. She and her grandmother would return to Santa Cruz with no money. The long hours wasted and the family disappointed. What do you hope will happen? Esperanza sadly took out her wares to hang them one by one on long splinters in the slat wood on either side. She felt terribly alone. Even her poor abuelita was nowhere to be seen. The people slowly noticed. They pointed at the elaborate weavings. Tourists and Guatemalans alike drew closer to her tiny place and looked up with wonder at the beautiful work in front of them. The large tapestry blossomed with images of Guatemala. Esperanza and Abuela had worked in intricate symbols of the country's history. There are heroines and heroes inspired by the glorious Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Maya. And in one comet, a beautiful Quetzal seemed to watch over it all from within a white cage. In Esperanza's hands, the tapestry's colors shone so brightly, like the sun over Guatemala's Lake Atilian. People turned from commercial stalls to stand before Esperanza's complex weaving. When she looked up, Esperanza saw Abuela with a smile across her birthmarked face. It didn't take long for all of their work to be sold that day. The people were disappointed when all of it was gone, but Esperanza promised to return with new things the following month. Well, what do you notice about Abuela? And on the way back to Santa Cruz, grandmother and granddaughter sat side by side. Esperanza's smooth and nimble fingers held tightly in her abuela's wrinkled old hands. Okay.